So I just climbed 500 LP in 2 days. From 0 LP Masters to Challenger, and I'm going to show you how I did it. Alright, so the first comp we have is Karma Warriors. It's pretty much just Karma, Gwen, and Fiora trio carry with Preservers as your backline and then Shapeshifters as your frontline. You want to prio your Karma items. Her best items are going to be an anti-heal item like Red Buff or Morello's, a mana item like Blue Buff or Shojin, and then an AP item like Nashers or Rabadons. Most games, you're not going to have enough items to itemize both Gwen and Fiora, so it's really important to take a look at your items on Krugs and Wolves to see who you're going to itemize. If you get AP Bruiser items, you're going to itemize Gwen, and then 80 Bruiser items is going to be Fiora. And if you can make a TG, I would slam it on whatever warrior you're not carrying. This comp plays 5 4 cost, which is really expensive, so most of the time you're going to stay on level 8 until at least 5-5 or 6-1. Every single turn on stage 4, I'm rolling to 20 or 10 gold for a charm and important upgrades, and if I have 2 or more upgrades, I'm going to roll to 0 to upgrade my board. If you hit a Briar on level 8, I would probably play it over Nico unless she's the majority of your frontline, and if you hit a Morgana, I would play it over one of the Preservers. Augments you're going to want to look out for are item augments like Capricious Forge, Over Encumbered, and Buried Treasures. Items are really good in this comp because you can itemize a lot of 4 and 5 costs like Briar, Morgana, Nasus, and then some econ augments like Slammin and Raining Gold because this comp really is super expensive. The second comp we have is Fiora Kalista Duo Carry. Again, a lot of the concepts I talked about in the last comp also apply here because they're both really expensive level 8 comps, especially with all the 5 costs that you're going to fit in on level 9. You're going to replace Jax with Camille, and you're going to fit in a Briar and a Morgana if you can. This is the standard board to play if you have Fortune, and as a result, it's really good with other scaling augments like Stationary Support and Stimback. I would play this comp from 2 different situations. The first one's pretty standard, it's just a Ginsu's opener, and the second one is if you have Fiora items, but your Krugs don't drop you AP or mana items, they drop you attack speed items, so you just play Kalista instead. The next comp we have is Vex Veigar reroll. You've probably seen this comp either dominate or just go dead last in your lobbies, so I'm going to try to teach you how to play it more consistent. First of all, this is just a very standard level 7 reroll comp. You're going to want to reroll for Vex 3 and Veigar 3 on level 7, and if you have a lot of gold or an econ augment, you can go for Mord 3 as well. Second of all, you need a tier to play this comp. I would probably never play this comp unless I got dropped like 2 Veigars and 2 Vexes on stage 2 if I had 0 tiers. The third and final tip, on stage 3 and 4, you want to save as much HP as possible. Now that sounds pretty obvious. Why wouldn't you want to save your HP? But on stage 2, you're probably sacking because Veigar is not a unit and you want to greed for tiers. And I see a lot of players, even in Emerald and Diamond, not roll for a charm every turn. I think on stage 3-5, when you're level to 7 and you roll down for Vex 2 and Veigar 2, every turn after, you have to roll for a charm. A lot of the time, you're just going to take the first charm you see. But if you're low in HP and the charm you get doesn't give you any combat power, I think it's worth it to roll 3 more times so that you can actually win fights. It's really important not to go 1 life because starting stage 5, you know there's going to be some player with like a Briar 2 that has True Biz and it just dashes onto your Veigar and one-shots him, or the Xerath just casts 1 time and all 4 shots land on Veigar and you just lose the fight. Like, things like this happen all the time, so if you can prevent not being 1 life, you should do it. Some augments you want to look out for are Mage Crown. It wasn't that good last patch, but this patch, Mage Crown is the best performing augment for Vex Veigar. Econ augments like March of Progress and Prismatic Ticket are also really good because you can chase Mordekaiser 3, who if you can manage to get a Mage Crest on, is just like the unkillable Demon King. And a lot of the augments that buff items like Crown Guarded, Thorn Plated Armor, and the Ionic Spark one, I can't remember what that's called, those are all really good items on Vex. And if you get the Fortune augment and you start the game with a lot of tiers, I would almost always play Veigar. The 8 loss is super good for Veigar. The artifact item works really well on Vex or Veigar. Vex can use Forbidden Idol, Veigar can use Zanya's or Manazane. And completed items are completed items. One time I got this 33% cash out, 2 completed item anvils and 2 5-cost units. I cashed out a Gargoyles, a Crown Guard, and a Nora. I went insta first. Like it was just the easiest first I've ever played in my life. If you get Fortune, just 8 loss and then go level 7, roll for 2-star everything, you're probably gonna win because not many people are rolling on the same interval as you, and yeah, just enjoy your free first. The fourth board is actually 5 different boards. It's gonna be all the comps that use +1s really well. That means Portal, Fairy, Sugarcraft, Witchcraft, and Frost. There's a lot of comps here, so I'm just going to go over them really quick. Maybe a few quick tips for each one, and then who to put the emblem on. First comp we have is Portal, very standard, I'm sure you've seen it. AP items on Rise, tank items on Taric, and you want to duo carry either your Nami or your Nora if you hit it. The emblem goes on Nami, but if you manage to hit a Diana, it's very strong because, you know, the portal grants a shield, and Diana uses that shield very well to cast 2 or maybe even 3 times. The only tip I have for this comp is to upgrade your shitters. The 1 and 2 costs are really important, so don't sell your Zoes, don't sell your Jaces. The portal does more damage, it gives you more attack speed, more resistances. Your Krugs spawn out with more HP, depending on the star level of your units, so yeah, just don't sell them. The second comp we have is Sugarcraft, very standard. You just play 6 Sugarcraft with the Rakan and a Tom Kench as your tank. AP items on Gwen, Sugar Spout on Fiora, and then put 80 Bruiser items on Fiora as well. If you manage to hit a Briar with no Fioras, it's also possible to Sugarcraft her and put the items on Briar instead. My tip here is, on one of the cash outs, you get a golden remover, so on stage 2, 3, and 4, it's important to slam all your items. You're gonna get a remover, so slam all your items and save as much HP as possible, so when you get the golden remover, you can move around the items as you wish. The third comp we have is very standard as well. It's just Fairy +1. You're gonna want to put a Fairy Spat on one of the frontliners. On level 8, it's okay on Hecarim, but when you level to 9, I think it's really good on Morgana and Camille. The two tips I have for this comp, the first one is to hold Katarinas. If you have a lot of Katarinas and you hit a lot of Katarinas on your 4-2 level 8 roll down, it can be worth it to chase this, because if you hit 3 items on your Katarina, she can often be a win con. And the second tip is Shojin on Milio. Milio can print temporary items for your team, it can print permanent components for your team, and it can print gold. Just put Shojin on Milio and your board is gonna get 10 times stronger, especially because Rakan tanks infinite in this comp. He just heals so much HP. Fourth comp, Fire and Ice. You've probably seen this 1,000 times. Frost Emblem, Shojin, Last Whisper, Red Buff are all good on Varus. 80 Bruiser items on Olaf, tank items on Nasus. The only tip I have for this comp is to position their weak side so you spawn clones as soon as possible so they explode and do damage, and you can just snowball the fight to win. And the fifth and final comp, Karma Witchcraft. You've seen this before as well. It was really popular in the first patch. Witchcraft Spat, mana item, anti-heal on Karma, 80 Bruiser on Fiora, tank items on Nasus. The only thing I'll say about this comp is that it heavily relies on Morgana. It averages a 2.8 with Morgana and a 5 without. So I would be tentative to pick this as my 3-2 augment unless I have a lot of HP and I can kind of guarantee my Morgana by going level 9. And the fifth and final comp, which is actually 2 different comps, sorry again, is going to be Jax Ashe and Kog'Maw reroll. So for Jax Ashe, your Ashe wants 2 Ginsus and a Runans, or 2 Runans and a Ginsus, and your Jax wants items like QSS, BT, or just tank items. Roll for Jax and Ashley on level 5 and hold additional copies of Akali, Hecarim, and Kassadin if you have the items to itemize them. Augments I would look out for are Pandora's Bench. You just roll for as many 2-star 1 cost as you can, and hopefully those roll into Jax and Ashe. Pyrocrest on Ashe, her ability, and especially if she gets a Hurricane, can hit the backline, so sometimes she's just annihilating the entire backline before the tank even does anything. And also category 5. She might not execute, but with 2 Runans in category 5, she'll hit the entire board, so their carries are gone before their tank. And Kog'Maw, I'm sure you've seen this in a bunch of guides and you've seen it played in your games. I'm not really going to explain it. Just roll on level 6 for all your 2-star 3 costs, and that's the game. The most important thing about these 2 reroll comps though is that you have to roll for a charm every single turn starting stage 3. This is important because these comps cap out fairly low without a lot of enablers like Pyrocrest or Too Healthy or the new hero augment, and as a result, you need that combat power in the early and mid game so that when late game comes around and people are out capping you with 2-star 5 costs, you have enough HP to potentially go 3rd or maybe even 2nd. So those are the 5 or maybe 9 comps I played to climb 500 LP in 2 days. Hopefully this taught you something, and if it did, do all